All righty, beautiful. We are live. We're going to give everybody about 2 or 3 minutes to hop in here. And then we'll take it live, man. First live stream, AJ. Exciting times. Exciting times.
Yeah. It's like back in my radio days, except the listener had the fortune of not having to look at me because it was just radio.
Yeah.
Driving through a car. Can you imagine driving through a car and you listen to AJ, all of a sudden you see, oh, God, it's right through an intersection. Bam.
Yeah, careen off the bridge kind of thing. Yeah, that's a definite right there.
911 is triple staffed during my radio shows.
Yeah, I guess this is kind of like the new form of radio. But like you said, there's the faces on it now. You know what I mean? That's the difference.
Well, I mean, look at Joe Ovius and Joe Giglio. Look at what they're doing.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
yeah. They're doing it the right way, and that's a great approach. And it's interesting you bring that up as we're waiting for people to come in. Whoever's on right now, we're going to really tinker around with a lot of ideas coming up here in the off season about doing more stuff like this and getting people involved more. That's one of the things.
100%.
We opened up the comments about a year and a half ago. It's been awesome. I love going in there and responding to people. The ones who aren't very complimentary and the ones who are. It's all good. It's all love. It all helps. I think. I take criticism seriously because it's a way to get better sometimes or help someone understand something that maybe they don't. So I enjoy that. But we're going to tinker around with a lot of stuff this offseason. And also for the people who are waiting before we get launched here, Noah and I are going to be in Greenville. We're heading there Tuesday. Wednesday will be a massive media day there where there's an open practice. So if you're in that area, you get to watch the Tar Heels practice for an hour on the court at Bond Secures Arena. And there's a ton of media access. Locker rooms open for like an hour. So we're going to spend a lot of time in there, get a lot of stories for you. Thursday, if they win Thursday, same type of deal on Friday, except the practice is not open to the public or the media, but we'll have a lot of other stuff too. So got a lot of loaded stuff coming on the Tar Heels this week and for as long as they play, which could be one game.
Yeah.
Could be more than one game. I think a lot of people are thinking one game right now, but the NCAA tournament kickstarting things, rebooting things can lead to some fascinating results at times.
Absolutely, man. You're 100% right. We're gonna give people about 30 more seconds to get in here. I said I'd give it about 2 or 3 minutes, so we'll go ahead and give it 3 officially before we get this thing started. But yeah, looking forward to talking a little bit. Get involved in the comments. We'll probably read some comments later on, but we're gonna try to just rifle through the podcast first, and then maybe we'll look at some comments later on in the show before we head on out. But yeah,
put my glasses on to read stuff.
I figured we see the glasses on a couple times on this show.
Oh, you're gonna see it a lot. I gotta read Ken Pom, otherwise it's just a blur, man.
Yeah,
especially now. It's like with the allergy stuff's already kicking in. So
100%. It's that time of year, man. There's pollen on the cars now. It's insane. Took about 5 minutes, and then we're just pollened up. All right, man. I think we can go ahead and get this thing started, AJ. I just want to check the live stream one more time, and we'll get rolling. Looks like everything is in order over there. All right, man. Let's do it. Let's talk about Carolina basketball. Yes, sir. Let's do it. All right, man. We are here officially. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones. I'm sure you guys know that by now if you're clicking on. But if you're new to the channel, appreciate everybody that's hopped on this live stream. It's the first live stream we've done since, I think, I forgot who it was. Christian Hamilton or somebody committed to North Carolina. Dina was there at the commitment. So this is like our first show in years that we've done any form of live stream.
Who did the live stream? Was that Dina did it?
Yeah, it was Dina. She was just at the commitment, put her phone up and recorded it. And
was it in a high school? Because I think so. You know how it goes with Dina and Wi-Fi in high schools. Should I do it?
It wasn't good. Go ahead. Yeah, get the Dina impression in early so we can get that past us.
Andrew, these high schools ain't got no good Wi-Fi. I can't get you no streaming.
I hope Dina's watching, by the way. That'd be awesome.
I'm gonna have to drive me on down the road and upload from my car.
You know what the funniest part, AJ, is? There's somebody who's never seen us before that just clicked on this video and heard you talking like that and was like, well, I'm never watching them again.
They're gone.
Yeah, just absolutely gone. Just gone.
Like the road runner leaving us in a trail of dust.
Oh, it's fantastic. That's fantastic.
I may do an entire show as Dina.
I think you should. I think it'd be absolutely awesome. I mean, I would be laughing the whole time because your impression of her accent is so fantastically good that it just makes me giggle. So I wouldn't be a great host in that one. So, but yeah, I think it'd be a funny podcast to say the least.
All right, let's go ahead and get into this thing. I think we got there's like 100 in there right now. Yeah,
about 104 people watching. Yeah, 104 people. Appreciate everybody that's jumped in here. But yeah, as I'm sure most people know by now, but if you don't, we'll go ahead and break the news to
By
you.
the way,
UNC,
Garrett, you're right. Hold on. I have to comment on this. Garrett Clemens Sports says Dina is a legend. Abso-freaking-lutely, she's a legend. I love Dina to death.
100%, man. She's the best in the biz. Absolutely love Dina. Hopefully she's watching this one, or it will be at some point. But as I was saying, I think she will too. Dina loves the stuff we do over here at TarHeal247.com. But yeah, Carolina 6th seed in the South region will face number 11 seed VCU on Thursday in Greenville, South Carolina, which I'm calling the great escape for all of these sports reporters out there that cover UNC. Because we spent podcasts this year talking about, Carolina, maybe they're marching towards Greenville. There's a chance Carolina's going to be in Greenville. And lo and behold, not necessarily the seed that Carolina fans wanted, but Carolina has found a way to make it to Greenville, South Carolina. So all the local sports reporters can rejoice in the fact they don't have to catch a flight to St. Louis, Missouri, or Portland, Oregon, or something like that. So give a round of applause.
When they were rolling out the brackets, man, I'm thinking, okay, there's half of San Diego taken care of. There's half of Portland taken care of. That was more important to me. It's just very, very difficult to get out there in such short notice and stuff. So, and honestly, the Greenville Bond Securities gave me an opportunity to write a quick column that's already up on the site because if anybody remembers, 2017, the Redemption Tour started at Bond Securities Arena in Greenville. They beat Texas Southern and then had to come from behind, outscored Arkansas 10-0 to close the game to win that one. Isaiah Hicks was 6 of those points. And then he went on to Memphis where Luke May became a legend.
Yeah. The rest is history, as they say after that one. But yeah, back in Greenville, South Carolina, which I think is good news for North Carolina as well. I think there'll be a really, really good contingent of Carolina fans. Not that being Carolina fans everywhere and they travel great, but I think it'll be a fantastic contingent of Carolina fans down in Greenville. But your 4th time ever, UNC's been a 6th seed, 1996, 04, 2014, lost in the 2nd round twice, 3rd round once. And AJ, I think before we get the immediate reactions to it, because we'd put a lot of stuff out on TarHeal247.com the day on Saturday, kind of looking towards this a little bit Sunday morning. It felt like Carolina was going to be a 6th seed. It was what all kind of the prediction brackets were trending towards, a chance of a 7th seed maybe. And then, as I mentioned, it ultimately ends up Carolina being a 6th seed in the South. Actually, let's do the immediate reaction before we dive into VCU. What was your immediate reaction to Carolina, not only in terms of the seed they got, because I also heard they were interviewing the Sun Belt commissioner on the Selection Sunday show after they had announced the bracket, and he said, someone asked him about Carolina. He said Caleb Wilson being out for the season obviously played a factor in Carolina's seed, maybe not being a little bit higher than it could have been if he would be back in the mix right now. But what's your overall thoughts on the 6th seed and overall ending up in the South as well?
I think if you look at the last 2 games, it's a pretty benevolent seed. But then again, if you look at the last 8 played without Caleb and the last 6 where Henry has been available and Caleb hasn't not been available, I think 6 is fair. They've played well without Caleb. The problem and the thing that really grabbed Noah and me in Charlotte last Thursday, and really was a connection to Saturday, was they didn't look like themselves. It's one thing to deal with the first Caleb injury. And as I've said a bunch of times, and for somebody new, this will be, you'll probably be cool with this. If you've heard this 1,000 times, you're going to, well, I've heard this 1,000 times, right? But they were climbing and they were going to meet him at a point. Yeah. And the point really was the day before the Duke game, he was going to be cleared for 5-on-5 and they were going to unveil him. And that bird was going to go do his thing at Cameron Indoor Stadium. I think it would have been a very different game because the Tar Heels had the grit and the fight for a while. They just didn't have enough skill. And then they didn't have that get up. They get back up off the floor, off the ground when Duke just pummeled them and the game got away from them. We saw the same thing against Clemson. Carolina did roar back late. That was partly Clemson. You got to give Carolina credit. And also maybe at some point, Hubert Davis will employ the full court pressure that we saw in Berkeley and that we saw in Charlotte earlier in a game, maybe do it in the middle of a run to stop a run so it doesn't become 30-6 or 19-5. Little things like that. But they were different. They were different. Their body language was different. Demeanor was different. Talking to them in the locker room last Thursday night, Noah and I walked out there and said, look, the narrative of the locker room from them is a story. So we wrote a story about it. We did a podcast about it. I have talked to a lot of people since then about it. And the good thing about them losing Thursday is they have a lot of time to get stuff out of their system. and play in the upcoming Thursday. So whatever it was, there's still a wonderful opportunity. And that's the thing that I think Carolina fans need to understand is this team has a chance to write a really, really neat story. We talk about redemption from the 2016 title game when they lost to the buzzer, and that team, their whole mission from 2 days after that game was the redemption tour. And it nearly didn't happen because Arkansas was down 9, then up 5 with about 3.5 minutes left, and the Tar Heels were just not playing well. And boom, they went on a little run. Another Kennedy Meeks block shot, by the way, during that stretch too. And they found themselves and got going. So maybe this team can redeem themselves at Bond Secures Arena from the last couple of weeks because they were a pretty good team without Caleb. Mm-hmm. And I thought when Caleb was coming back, I thought you and I've talked, with the recorder off, the recording device off, say, look, this club can really make a push because they're hard to guard when they're playing the right way and they're not stuck in sand with ankle weights on. So we'll see. I think that I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt right now that they've already had the conversations that need to be had. Mm-hmm. They know what's in front of them. Some of them are playing maybe for the last time in college, and there's a lot to still be gained. And quite frankly, I think they got a bracket that might help them, might work in their favor, to be perfectly honest with you. And they got a location. And guess what? If they advance, they're going to be in a doubleheader with Duke again. Which was the case 2017. Duke lost to South Carolina after Carolina beat Arkansas. So sports are wild, man. Sports has a way of repeating itself. History has a way of repeating itself in sports, or just the dust of history touches things as it moves forward. And we're kind of entering into that right now with the possibility of some really cool stuff that we can write and talk about next week.
Before we dive into the VCU matchup a little bit and talk about Carolina's potential path if they are to make a run, let's just look at the bracket as a whole, as you just alluded to. South region, as I mentioned, number 1 seed in the region is Florida. Fantastic year for them, defending national champs. Number 2, Houston, runners up from last year as well. They're the 2 seed in this region. Number 3 seed is Illinois. Carolina will end up having to play them in the second game if they can get past VCU, assuming Illinois beats Penn. And you've also got Nebraska as the 4 seed as well. Regional site is Houston, so a little bit interesting there with obviously Houston being one of those, one of the number 2 seed in the bracket. But you mentioned it being AJ Carolina maybe having the potential to do something in this bracket. What makes you say that? Because I think you look at least at those top 3 seeds, even top 4 seeds to an extent. You're like, man, there's some pretty good teams in here, especially with Florida being at number 1 and Houston being at number 2. So, what about the bracket in particular kind of stands out to you that makes you think, maybe this is somewhat of a favorable bracket for North Carolina if you can use that term?
You had to ask me to put the specs back on. I'm looking at the bracket right now. Yeah. So, when you look at where they are in their little quad of it, their little quartet, first of all, VCU is a good team.
We're going to talk about them in a second, so don't go too in depth on them yet. We're going to talk.
I know. I'm not going to. VCU is a good team, so it's going to be tough. It's going to be a real challenge for Carolina to get past them. VCU does some things that Carolina struggles with, especially on the defensive end. But if they can get past VCU, which they should, because beating VCU there, I think beating Clemson at home, Louisville at home, were better wins, so to speak, than if you were to beat VCU on a neutral floor. NCAA tournament maybe changes that a little bit. The Illinois Penn thing is interesting. If you're a Carolina fan and you get to watch that game, watch Fran McCaffrey, the Penn coach, because he's completely insane. I've seen him a couple times. Carolina played at Iowa during the COVID stuff, and there was like maybe 50 people in the stands. And you could just hear the guy screaming his head off. So he's entertaining. But I think that's a quartet Carolina can get out of. Penn might give Illinois some trouble. They might give Illinois some trouble. Illinois is a team that's got a lot of talent. They got a lot of European guys. They're not super athletic. So Carolina might not have to worry about super, super bouncy teams that can give them issues. I mean, they're really good. They're better than Carolina. They've been better throughout the season for the most part than Carolina, but Carolina's had some really nice upsides even without Caleb. So, and they're going to have the crowd. It's going to be fascinating to see how that second round crowd split is going to be. Illinois will travel people. They always do, but Duke and Carolina will have a lot of people there. and usually there's more Carolina. So I think the Tar Heels have a decent chance of getting out of there. If you look at the rest of that, if you want me to go very, very quickly, we're not going to get in depth too much now.
Yeah.
Texas A&M's going backwards. They have not played well for over a month. I think St. Mary's is an interesting team, but if Carolina ended up playing them, St. Mary's can't guard Henry. And then you got Houston and Idaho down there, and it's good to see the Vandals back in the tournament for the first time in a long time. But Houston is really good. But Houston, if Kingston Flemings isn't doing his thing, Houston has trouble sometimes with some stuff. They're just so physical and so gritty. That would be such a tough challenge for the Tar Heels. But I think right now, if this team were to get to a point where it faces Houston, it would be a successful run, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah,
and they can save some face, and the narrative that has been literally on fire the last several days would probably calm some.
I think it would. I think especially with the Caleb Wilson factor, because, it's, again, we don't have to continue to talk about it, but it's an extremely unlucky thing to happen, especially in the manner it happened. But Carolina lost its best player, and that would be very difficult for any team to manage with, especially when your best player is a future top 5 lottery pick in this year's draft. So I do agree. I think if you could end up playing, Houston in the Sweet 16 or something like that, I think a lot of the narrative would shift a little bit, and it would be a little bit maybe more favorable towards what this team was able to do, despite losing, again, as I mentioned, Caleb Wilson in it. But let's dive into
Houston would defend them a little bit like Duke too. They would push the offense out. That's what Clemson and Duke won those games for a lot of reasons, but primarily because they pushed the offense out.
100%.
And honestly, Carolina switches. Clemson just blitz their switches.
Another team in their bracket, by the way, Clemson. Yeah. Clemson is in the South. They're playing Iowa in the 8-9 matchups. It'd be very unlikely. I think Carolina ends up playing them again, but you never know. Yeah.
8 ACC teams, and NC State backed their way into the first 4, but I kind of think NC State can make some noise too. I wanted Miami, Ohio to make a little bit of a run, just to shut people up, because that league used to be really good. Well, it's not really good. It's good. The top 4 or 5 teams are always pretty good. And they've had Sweet 16 teams. Kent State went to a regional final in 2002. They've had success before, but nobody will play them. And that's where we are now. And a lot of these teams don't even get in any of these tournaments anymore. Everything's changed a lot, and not all for the better. And I kind of wanted them to validate themselves, but they're playing an ACC team in SMU. So I'd like to see SMU get out of there, and the longer they play, the healthier BJ Edwards gets. I like to see them play with a full lineup in the NCAA tournament. I think that they'd be dangerous if they're completely healthy, and that means they need Edwards to get healthy.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, the other 11. Yeah, that's the 11 playing game, SMU and Miami of Ohio. But yeah, Miami of Ohio just losing to UMass like they did in the conference tournament early was just not what they needed, despite having a fantastic season. But yeah, you look at their strength of schedule. It's not great, but a team to go undefeated in the regular season, man, I don't care. You're pretty darn good if you're able to do that. So they definitely deserve to at least be in the field. I would have liked to see them in there for real instead of having to play a play-in game, but that's where we're at right now.
But they have an opportunity. They have an opportunity now. That's the great thing. Everybody's got an opportunity now. If they want respect, they have a chance to go earn it right now. If the Tar Heels want to redeem themselves from the last 2 games and want to show that they're a lot better, that they're a reputable team without Caleb Wilson, they have an opportunity to do that right now. And I think that, like I said a few minutes ago, the bracket that they're in gives them that opportunity. I mean, they could very well lose to VCU, and they could lose by 15 points. They're athletic. Yeah. They're deep. They get after it. They've always done that. Their coach, by the way, is the son of a legendary coach from St. Joe's, who actually took St. Joe's to a regional final a long time ago, and very interesting character. So it's sort of the VCU's become the cradle of coaches. That's where Ryan Odom was, So as a dog has just walked into my office right now while I'm trying to do this. Isn't that wonderful?
Fantastic. At least she wouldn't be right.
I mean, she ran in here like a bat out of hell. I was like, good, what's going on?
She wants to be on the live stream, man.
Like a fox went through the dog door and came in and was chasing her.
Well, if you need to go kick her out,
she came in here as fast as VCU is going to try to push tempo on Thursday.
It's a great segue into talking about VCU a little bit, because I do think the first matchup's an interesting one. And looking at some of the reception and feedback from Carolina fans, I do think there's a lot of Carolina fans that are a little nervous about this matchup, and I think rightly so for a number of different reasons. The line's already out. Carolina 2.5-point favorite, at least opened as a 2.5-point favorite going into that one. As I said, that game is on Thursday in Greenville. But looking at VCU, AJ, Atlantic 10 tournament champs, one of the hottest teams in the field right now. Explain why in a second. 27-7 on the season, 15-3 in conference play. Finished tied for first in the A10 with St. Louis. Ended up being the 2 seed in the tournament and won the conference tournament, as I mentioned. Have won 16 of their last 17 games, though, in 6 in a row, with the only loss in that span coming at number 18, St. Louis at the time. So they did lose to St. Louis twice. It was the eventual winner of the A10 regular season. But I mean, looking at some notable results as well, losses to Utah State, NC State, Vanderbilt, New Mexico. Do have a win over South Florida and another conference foe in Virginia Tech. A couple of trends. I know you can find this in your piece as well. Beat Dayton 3 times, and as I mentioned, lost twice to St. Louis. So I think this is a tricky matchup, man. I think especially when you see that 16 of the last 17. This is and rightly so, one of the hottest teams coming into this tournament, fresh off a conference tournament championship as well. It's a good program historically. Shout out to my mom. My mom actually went to nursing school at VCU. I don't think it was called VCU back then. At least the nursing school wasn't. Shout out my mom for that. I don't know if she's watching. Very, very unlikely. But
they have one of the best nursing schools in the country.
100%. Yeah. Shout out to my mom on that. Point to the pastor on her going there. But yeah, man, those who don't know, it is obviously located in Richmond, Virginia. But what do you make about this matchup? Because you dive into VCU a little bit, knowing the history of the program as well. Usually a team that's in the tournament or at least in the conversation, always a good team in their conference. And, it's a team that I think a lot of people, even casual March Madness fans, will recognize. So what's your takeaway on Carolina having to play them in the first round? Because I do think it is a matchup in a game that could potentially provide some challenges for the Tar Heels, especially with what we've seen out of Carolina the last couple of games in particular.
Not could, but will. And let's say for the sake of discussion that the Tar Heels have shed their skin of the last 2 games and they're ready to roll. It's still going to be a challenge because Carolina still has trouble defending at times, and then you have trouble defending on the perimeter. And VCU, the way that they play, I still have to watch a lot more to get more familiar with them. But as deep as they are, they're going to push tempo, they're going to push pace, they're going to get after it. There's a little hair on fire way that they play the game. And if the Tar Heels don't always have that. They can't match that a lot because they're not supremely athletic, which is why I think that Illinois is not a terrible matchup for them. For the reasons I stated before, because they're not super athletic either. So, but VCU is, and if we're going to go on the negative right now, like envisioning a poor outcome for the Tar Heels, I can see them struggling tremendously defending the perimeter and getting caught in some crappy switches, and then we know what happens when that occurs. The Tar Heels are miserable defensively when they get caught in that stuff. This is probably not a team that they would press a whole lot because people are now saying, hey, let's press a lot, because we've seen them do some good things with the press and stuff. And Noah wrote a piece about that the other day. I think Carolina's going to – I would love to – I've said before, I kind of want to see this team flash some zone every once in a while.
Yeah.
Maybe even some matchup zone, but they don't really work on it. They're just not going to do that. I don't think we're going to see Hubert dig into a bag of tricks, because I don't think Hubert has a bag of tricks.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I think it's what you see is what you get. So it's going to be solely dependent on these guys being ready to play, them having a clear mind and playing well enough and staying dialed in enough that when they do switch, they could switch and recover instead of just switch and get lost. When they box out, they actually put a rear end into somebody and clear them out a little bit. When they run their stuff, they run tighter stuff, and they get more out of those DHOs, which is the only movement they had on offense the other night against Clemson. And maybe they can get some rolls, have some successful rolling. I do think that VCU could have trouble with Henry. I would run a crap load of stuff through Henry, not just in the post, but I'd move him around. Absolutely. Force that big kid from VCU to chase him around. He's their second leading scorer, I think. He's their leading rebounder. They desperately need him. Force him to chase Henry around, draw some fouls, and maybe Henry can hit the free throws this time. That to me would be the recipe to beat them. But it's going to be a very, very difficult assignment, because if North Carolina is not fully dialed in, and when I say fully dialed in, I'm not saying that they weren't dialed in the sense they didn't try hard the last 2 games. their minds weren't right. I don't think that I think they had a lot of stuff going on, a lot of clanking going on up there, and they weren't that clear in their minds, and that showed on the court. If that's gone, then I think they have a chance not just to win this game, but to look pretty good in doing so. If it's the same approach, and both Luka and Jaren talked about the approach, and they were very critical of it Thursday night in Charlotte. If it's the same approach, they're going to get ousted in the first round, and it may get ugly because VCU's athletic ability can take advantage of a lot of stuff, and they can get a lot of easy looks as a result. They're bouncy. VCU's bouncier than Clemson.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think it's definitely a more athletic team. But you are right. I think the mindset of North Carolina is the biggest question mark that I think not only we have, but a lot of Carolina fans watching this live stream have as well. And that's because of what happened a little over a week ago. People forget. I mean, the Caleb Wilson news came out last Thursday with him. That was when he broke his, what ended up happening. That was that's what happened.
Week and a half. Yeah.
I think it was just last Thursday, wasn't it? The Duke game was last Saturday.
Yeah, but people thinking last, they're going to think now, like last Thursday.
Oh, yeah.
To me,
sorry, not this previous Thursday, the Thursday before. Yeah, sorry about that. Literally the week before.
They took the court against Clemson. But they didn't find out for sure that he was out until Friday morning.
Yes, but the injury occurred on practice on Thursday. So
that's when Hubert called a few people, different people in his office, and I said after the Duke game, that I thought that the adults in the program were really hit hard by this.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up. Yeah,
and you can tell because there's a trickle down effect. They were hit hard by it, and it's okay. It's human nature. They care deeply about him. This is a superstar lottery pick who has soaked in every moment of his experience there. And I'll tell a quick story. It's a story that Noah could tell, but we'll let him tell more in depth. But Noah actually has a friend who's a GA on the FSU staff, and FSU came up to play Carolina in late December, and they brought a bunch of their managers, and it was like a student manager game that they had at the Dean Dome. And there's basically one person in the stands, and it was Caleb Wilson. And he's screaming and yelling, cheering for the Carolina managers, like chest bumping and all that kind of stuff. The dude is real. He's legit. He's a 100% college student. He's a college kid. He's immersed himself into all things college spirit. And he's one of those guys that you want to see experience all these things. You don't want to see him go on the rest of his life. Well, I didn't play in the Duke game at Cameron because I didn't get to play in the NCAA tournament because, and that's why it hurt people so much. That's why they really took it hard. And it was a tough recovery for the adults, and no wonder it was tough for the players as well. And is that, I'm not going to say it's right or wrong. It's not my circumstance. I was disappointed for them, but I have no bearing on it. They did. And sometimes timing of stuff can be really bad. And you end up having if that happens and they're playing Pitt like it did the first time, they'll probably get through that, right? But they got to go to Duke. And then they get punked in that run, and then their heads are spinning, and then Clemson comes out and goes on a run, and they're hungry, and they're pretty good. Maybe this time between has allowed everything to settle, and they've kind of regained some normalcy, I guess.
Well, yeah, that's the question mark about this team going to the tournament. Is where the mind is, like, as I was going to talk about earlier. It's like, where is the mindset with this team? And I do think too, you look at the matchups they played, as you just mentioned, after the Caleb news came out. You have to go to Duke, best team in the country, number one overall seed in the tournament, and you get blitzed in that second half run. Play okay in the first half, having a game at halftime, then, as you mentioned, get blitzed in the second half. And then you have to follow it up with a Thursday matchup with Clemson in the ACC tournament, a team you just 9 days before you would just beat. So, I mean, these are tricky matchups Carolina was walking into with the Caleb Wilson news still lingering on their minds. And you could tell, I think, Carolina's been affected by it. There's no doubt about it, especially you look at the second half against Duke. I think the overall performance against Clemson, despite the fight back over the last, 3.5, 4 minutes of that game. So the question is now can that be shaken? And one of the questions I had was between the Duke game and the Clemson game in the ACC tournament, about 4 or 5 days, would Carolina be able to shake that off and maybe have a little bit of momentum, be a little bit better mind state of a team going into the Clemson game? I don't think we saw that. So it is a little bit concerning in my point of view for that. But now you've got a Carolina team that, again, has an opportunity. Everybody in this NCAA tournament is 0-0. This Carolina team has an opportunity now, just like everybody else in this field, to potentially make a run. So I think it's up to Carolina. We've seen Carolina play well without Caleb Wilson. We have. There's no doubt about it. Carolina's beaten some good teams without Caleb Wilson in the fold. We've seen this team deal with adversity this season, with the Seth injury, the Henry injury coming at the same time to Caleb. Like, this team has had to deal with that. But if their heads don't come back up and they don't recover overall from that Caleb Wilson injury, I do think it could be a very quick exit in the tournament. I think that's where a lot of Carolina fans' heads are right now. So that is the number one thing I think everybody's going to be looking for, because I don't think it matters what kind of pieces and how well this guy shoots or how well this guy shoots going into the game. If the mind state isn't right, if the mindset isn't right going into it, what's to say Carolina doesn't get punched in the mouth and give up a 20-5 run to VCU? Do they respond to that? It's a lot harder to do that when the mindset isn't right. You know what I mean? So
I'll tell you right now,
we have to really, really pay attention to. And maybe we'll get a better gauge at some of the media days as well leading up to the tournament. I think it'll be interesting to talk to some of the players.
It will, because I trust my instincts and getting a feel for stuff like this and talking to the kids. But man, if they give up a 20-5 run against VCU, that means they're already in that mode. That's how the run happens. There are a couple of things. I said earlier that everybody's 0-0, like you just said, and lots of weird stuff happens as it starts in the tournament. But more often than not, like, I'm not a big believer that a team that's hot carries that into the NCAA tournament. It does happen sometimes. Happened NC State a couple years ago. It happens sometimes, but it doesn't always happen. It's not a guarantee. When people say, oh, man, St. John's is playing great. Well, St. John's could go out Thursday or Friday. When do they play? Probably not. I think they play Troy. So maybe they go out Saturday, and all the St. John's fans are thinking, man, Patino's a stud. He might get us to the Final Four for the first time since Chris Mullen and Walter Berry and all those guys were there. And then they go out in the second round. That happens quite a bit. But what absolutely I think has a better chance of carrying into the tournament is when teams are not playing well. When teams are banged up, when teams' psyches are wounded, when teams are searching for leadership that suddenly is kind of wobbling a little bit. The team I saw the other night, that was something that was kind of missing a little bit with this team. Henry was doing a lot of the yelling, more than I've seen or heard previously, and a lot of it was not very complimentary. He used the F word an awful lot. Hubert, by the way, doesn't say it, but he doesn't penalize his players for saying it, obviously.
He probably thought it. He probably thinks it every once in a while, let's be honest. But he doesn't say it.
Because if you get like 9 F-bomb mulligans for the season, Henry used them up by the end of that 49-26 run the other night. So they could continue, and if they do, they're going to get rolled. And the other thing, too, and I think this is a fair thing to bring up, because this is part of the criticism of Hubert, and I think it's very fair. And we would be remiss if we didn't mention this, but while Carolina is kind of licking its wounds over Caleb going down, Duke loses its starting point guard and starting center, and they win the ACC championship again. That magnifies some of the negative stuff around Carolina, around Hubert right now. And I get it. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, if McCray would have hit that shot and sent Duke out in the quarterfinals, at least that discussion point wouldn't be there.
Exactly.
But it didn't happen. And the discussion point is there. And then the backup freshman guard, the other boozer, ends up playing really, really well. Shire figured out a way to win. And he could tweak things and change things. I mean, they don't play the exact same way they did a year ago. They're very different. And it's one of the things that Kay did really well. Roy adapted too. People used to say Roy was stubborn. I say BS on that, because 4 of his last 7 teams had a stretch 4. And quite frankly, in 18, you could argue in some respects they had a stretch 5 at times when Luke was a 5.
Yeah, he adapted.
So
he adapted.
He adapted a lot. He adapted. You're not one of the greatest of all time if you don't adapt.
I was about to say that. Yeah.
Coach as long as he did. So Carolina under Hubert sometimes doesn't adapt. They go through long periods where it's like you're banging your head against the wall. It's like, maybe you should stop banging your head against the wall, because this run is growing. And those are things that are still part of what he needs to do as developing as a coach. And before anybody says he's in his 5th year, how can he still be developing? I get it. North Carolina, having a coach still developing is not a common conversation, but most of us do continue to get better over the course of time. Mac Brown even said, and I probably shouldn't bring up Mac's name because people yell about that too, but Mac's like, look, I'm still getting better. I'm still getting better. I'm still learning. And then NIL came, and suddenly those recruiting classes didn't matter as much.
Things changed a little bit.
Different day.
Yeah, definitely as things
so
change.
I do think Carolina fans can look at this bracket and look at this team, knowing the personnel, and that it is a club with great chemistry. They've had a great chemistry all year long. It's a good group of dudes that maybe the time has allowed them to heal, and now they've got a team. Now they have an opponent. Now they have a location. Now they have a date, and they can start focusing on that. And perhaps they step forward and play well for a couple of games and make something a little bit more of the season. Or it's just a continuation, and they go out in the first game. And if they do, there's going to be a lot of stuff said, and some of it is valid.
Oh, of course it is. And as you mentioned, you talked about Duke, and I hate to bring him up again, but I mean, don't get it twisted. I mean, a lot of the reasons I think that Hubert gets a lot of the pressure he does, it's not the only reason. There's a lot of reasons, but I think one of the reasons that Hubert gets a lot of criticism is because what the team down the road is doing, what John Shire's been able to do in a short period of time, winning 3 ACC, tournament championships, Final Four. I mean, a team, 2 number 1 seeds. I mean, he's been fantastic. So I do think that plays a big factor in a lot of the frustrations that Carolina fans have with Hubert right now. It's, as I mentioned, it's obviously not the only factor, but it definitely does, because it's Duke and Carolina. I mean, they're rivals for a reason, and it is a lot of bragging rights and a lot of comparing because of how much these blue blood programs and how much basketball means to both of these fan bases. So yeah, I think if Duke was, maybe doing the same things Carolina was doing over the last 4 or 5 years, I think the conversation might be a little bit different, but the frustrations would certainly still be there. And as you talked about, rightly so, with kind of where this season's gone, and obviously the bad taste that I think people have in their mouths right now because of what happened in the second half against Duke, and because Carolina, on the 10-year anniversary of them last winning an ACC tournament, which I've talked about before, is like teetering on the line of just being something that should not happen. Unacceptable.
Teetering.
They go out in the first round. I mean, sure, let's just call it unacceptable. We're at the 10-year point of not winning it, so we can call it unacceptable now. Double digits.
If you're going to play the tournament, try to win it.
100%.
One of the I was on Adam Gold's show the other day, and I was like, well, there ain't going to be a conference tournament in 5 or 10 years because it's not that important anymore. But as each tournament builds, it gets important. You watch Houston and Arizona Saturday night, man, that was important. You watch the way Arkansas had to fend off Ole Miss. That's important. And the Duke-Virginia game was a war, man. That's important stuff. And those games help harden you and help layer you with added coats of armor for the next run. Now, you're not required to play in a conference championship game to make a run, because in 05, 09, and 17, Carolina went out in the semifinals of the ACC tournament, won the national title. Mm-hmm. In 82, Dean won it. In 93, Carolina didn't win it in the ACC tournament when Dean won his 2 national championships. So I don't think that there is a formula that says, well, if you do this in a tournament, then you can win a title. If you don't, then you can't win a title. I don't think it works like that at all. I think really, really good teams win games, and every once in a while, really good teams have their eye when they're really uber focused on a championship, a national championship. Sometimes they look over the ACC tournament.
Oh, for sure.
And that's human nature as well. So
yeah, we've seen teams do that.
That's
all the time.
Human nature as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I want to look at the potential second round matchup real quick, just to dive a little bit deeper into the bracket, and then we'll wrap this thing up. But if Carolina does get past VCU, which we talked about being a trickier matchup for North Carolina than some people might think, play the winner of number 3 seed Illinois, which lost to Wisconsin in the Big Ten quarterfinals this week, and number 14 seed Penn, which are Ivy League champs. So an interesting matchup there. Obviously, Illinois is an interesting team too. 24-8 on the season, 15-5. Really, really good at one point, but kind of opposite to VCU, are not coming into this tournament as one of the hottest teams in the field. They did finish 4th in the Big Ten. But they did have lost 5 of their last 9 games, and as I mentioned, lost to Wisconsin in the Big Ten tournament quarterfinals in overtime. Interestingly enough, they do end up playing. It would be Carolina's first matchup with Illinois since November 2010, a game AJ was probably at, if we're being completely honest. Were you at that game, AJ, up in Champaign?
That one was no. I covered a game in Champaign in 2000. It was when McCants, Felton, and May were freshmen.
Yep.
Because they played in the old preseason NIT over Thanksgiving at MSG. I covered those games, and then the following Tuesday they were in Champaign. That was another story for the book. When we tell
Save it for
fest.
the book, as you say. Yeah.
Well, so I was in Wilmington, so I drive to Raleigh, get on a flight, fly to Chicago. Mm-hmm. This was the budget at the time, right? I had to then I got on the L train, went downtown from O'Hare. Then I had to walk about 7 blocks, and it was snowing, to a bus station to take a bus to Champaign, Illinois. Guys, true story. We're about halfway to Champaign, and the Illinois State Police pulls the freaking bus over. They make us all get out of it. And I got a game that night. I traveled on game day. I rarely travel on game day now.
So you never do that.
I had
anymore.
A game that night. And I'm still fairly young in the business, and I'm like, man, I can't really afford to miss this. This will not be a good look. It won't score me any points. They have us all get off the bus, and there's a damn fugitive on the bus.
Really? That's why
we had to leave our stuff. So we get off the bus. We're standing out in some gravel pit somewhere, and there's like 10 state cop cars, and they go in there and they pull the guy out. And now that I didn't notice him when I was getting on the bus, because I sat toward the back. But then when they pulled him out, I was like, yeah, that guy looks like a fugitive. He's got fugitive written all over him.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, if I would have saw.
So that night, the Tar Heels played at Illinois.
So
I did meet him in 2010.
Did you make it to the game on time? You did?
Yeah, no. The bus dropped me off downtown Champaign. If I say downtown with quotes, Champagne's not that big. I took a cab to my hotel, took a shower, took a cab back to the arena. I worked it out with the cab driver, give him a $20 tip if he would come back and pick me up like 2.5 hours after the game. And I went out there and stood forever. He was late. It was like 9 degrees. And I was like, God dang. That's fantastic. Do I really want to do this for a living? Let me think about it.
They had to cross through the mind one time, and that, like, is this really what I need to be doing for the rest of my life? And lo and behold, you're still here. So I was wondering, I figured I would have put my life on you covering that game. So
the next day, I had to take a bus back to Chicago and got snowed into Chicago for a couple of days.
Of course you did.
Couldn't fly out.
Of course you did. So. To be fair, late November in Chicago is very high percentage chance of you getting some kind of weather precipitation. So yeah, that's probably not.
If you're a Seinfeld person, if you remember the episode where George has that little run-in at the airport with the fugitive, or not a fugitive, the guy that was like, he was under arrest and they were going to escort him somewhere, and the guy ends up locking George in the bathroom and beats the crap out of him. The dude looked like that guy.
Did he really?
I've got that dude from Seinfeld vibes going on in my head right now thinking about it.
That's fantastic. Only you would be on a bus going to a game that gets pulled over because there's a fugitive in it. Like, that is an Andrew Jones travel story. Save that. That one should be in the book somewhere. That one might need its own chapter. That's absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I do think it's an interesting
back on topic.
To get back to Illinois, I do think an interesting matchup, but at the same time, a team that is not coming in, kind of like Carolina in some ways, not coming into this game to use a soccer term, I'm a big soccer fan, in the greatest of form right now, to say the least. But you got to get past VCU first. But just looking a little bit ahead, I mean, could see Illinois, could see Penn, again, a team that's coming off a conference tournament championship. If you win that game, you would likely end up playing second seed Houston after that as well.
TJ Power.
Yeah. It's a great last name, by the way. Fantastic last name.
By the way, we have a lot of interesting comments. There's people are really going off on about Shire and Duke.
I figured that conversation might.
I one of the reasons I still do this, and will do it until I probably take my last breath, is I absolutely love fans. I love the passion, and I love stuff like this. I think it's awesome. I would never want it to change. I don't want anybody to get along.
No,
I want State to hate. I want State fans to hate Carolina. I want Carolina to hate Duke and all that kind of stuff.
It's okay to hate people.
Triangle. Okay. Oh, I love it. Hate is good for sports.
Yeah, man. You can't have it. Some would argue you can't have it without it, man. Sports isn't what it is if you don't have a little bit of hate going on there. It makes it fun,
Yeah, people are ripping Shire for not winning the title last year. I mean, he should. That roster should have won the national championship last year. But
yeah, for sure.
All great coaches have a couple of years where they wish they had it. Roy with the 96 Kansas?
Yeah.
2012 Carolina, and they had the injury, so there's an excuse. Look, Dean Smith in 77 goes to the Four Corners. They were banged up. That's why I went to the Four Corners against Marquette. Dean in 84, Jordan picks up his second foul. He sits him. That night made Dan Dockich famous. That's why we got to deal with Dan Dockich now out there on social media and doing stuff because of that night. He probably hadn't paid for a drink in the state of Indiana since then.
Probably
because he
not. I mean,
quote
shouldn't
unquote
be.
shut down MJ. That was probably a mistake by Dean. Everybody has it. It took Coach K a while to win one, took Dean a while to win one, took Roy a while to win one. And I remember being in the press conference, Roy's press conference in St. Louis in 2005, and somebody asked him about finally winning a championship. And Roy, who was reactionary at times with questions, but really gave a thoughtful response on this one. And he said, I'm going to paraphrase here, they won a close game, beat a really good Illinois team, by the way. Darren Williams and some D Brown, some studs.
D Brown, yeah.
James Augustine, they were really, really good.
Yeah, fantastic.
And Roy says, if it was a few points that went a different way an hour ago, and I'm sitting here in front of you, would I be a different coach? Would I be the same coach? And I thought that was interesting because at a moment where he could have, hey, I got the monkey off my chest. He could pound his chest. He could say a lot of things about special it is and all that kind of stuff. He didn't go in that direction. He said, I'm the same coach I was. Yeah. Sean May just grabbed a whole hell of a lot of rebounds tonight,
Yeah.
Jawad hit a couple of big shots.
Ray Felton as
Jackie
well.
Jackie Manuel got a couple of big stops, and that's why they won the title. So I thought that was an interesting response, and it kind of changed the way I look at this coach can't win the big one. Because if you get to a point where people say you can't win the big one, you've won a lot of big ones to get there.
Great point.
Otherwise, no one's going to say you can't win the big one. No one's telling Earl Grant he can't win the big one because he can't win the little one. So you got to
win the little one first. Yeah. You got to win the little one first.
So it's – I'm not defending Shire. I'm just saying it's year 4, pump the brakes. Maybe he gets one this year. It's a lot of I was listening to Field of 68 driving home from Charlotte, and they were talking about like there's pressure on Tommy Lloyd to win one. It's in his 5th year.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other really good teams out there. Only one coach can stand at the end with holding the net up in the air.
I know. Really you can pick so many coaches that need to win one if you want to, take that angle at it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of coaches that you could say that about that have had.
Tom Izzo only has one. Calipari only has one.
Exactly. Exactly. Be coaching forever. I mean, that shows the difficulty in winning it. And that shows the difficulty in consistently being one of these top teams and consistently being able to make a run in tournament like we've seen Carolina do in the past. And as you mentioned, Duke teams do in the past and other Blue Bloods do as well. But let's put a nice bow on it real quick, AJ. We're head on out of here. Been on this thing for about 48 minutes. Try to keep it under an hour.
Do you want to hit on anything?
Yeah, I'm going to read the comments. I'm going to read the comments while I kick it to you real quick. But just overall kind of final bow on Carolina's seeding and the opportunity that is ahead for them. And I'll read the comments and see if there's anything you want to bring up before you head out.
I think it's about as good a situation as they can ask for. Getting to 6, because the committee could have said, look, you're 5-3 without this dude. And in those 3 losses, you were down by at least 18 in the second half of all 3. So the committee could have said, well, you're really an 8 seed or a 9 seed. They could have said that. And a lot of people would have complained and asked questions about it, but they could have done that. They didn't. So they kept them with the 6 seed. They gave them a nice little spot there at 6. They're playing in Greenville. They're close to home. I mean, you and I talked every week about Greenville. Every damn net report and resume thing I did, I noted Greenville, the importance. I started talking about Greenville in December. My dad's like, shut the hell up about Greenville. I don't want to hear about Greenville.
We were right, AJ. We were right.
Yeah, I don't ever want to hear Bond Secures Arena ever again in my life. I guess he will now.
Found a way.
They're going to be there. Yeah, but they get that. They get to play. I think playing right away is better for this group because they've had enough time off, but you don't want too much time off. You get right into it. And they're playing a team that can beat them, but they're playing a team that has played an Atlantic 10 schedule the last 2.5 months. Atlantic 10 is a solid league, but it obviously isn't the ACC. So, and then if they advance, I think they have a second round situation that's very manageable for them.
Yeah.
So I like where they are. If you could have crafted it, a best case scenario, it's hard to beat what they have. It's hard to do better than what they have.
And you could, like you said, man, you could see Carolina making it to the second weekend. You could, because of playing a team like VCU, playing a team like Illinois. I'm not taking anything away from those teams. They're good teams, but playing them close to home in Greenville, be a lot of Carolina fans there. I think Carolina will have a firm home court advantage in that respect, as much as you can have one on neutral site ground. But like, if you look at how Carolina's played without Caleb Wilson before the last 2 games, like Carolina, as I mentioned, has beaten some good teams this year. So it's not like you're sitting here like, man, this team has really gone downhill without Caleb.
They were home though.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think the Carolina crowd is David brought up in a podcast last week. Has been absolutely fantastic this year. So that does play a factor, but they still won those games. You know what I mean? And you're on a neutral site.
And they won them,
and they had to going to be there. You know what I mean?
And they had to play with the kind of grit they must take to the floor Thursday, must take to the floor Saturday. Every time they play the rest of the year, they've got that sack has to be full. Remember I was talking about the Grinch back in like late December, early January? Yeah. That massive sack where he almost falls over the side. They need that sack that the Grinch had with every bit of fiber and fuel they can throw in there and take it to the court, because they don't have that one dude that can get them a bucket when the half-court offense sucks.
No.
Which Caleb did a lot of the time. So that guy who can erase a defensive mistake by help side, even if he doesn't block a shot, just alter or force a guy to not shoot, and he kicks it back out and they reset, which Caleb did that a lot. So they have to have every bit of that moving forward. But I do like the little quadrant, if you will. It's not even a quadrant, that quartet that they have. Afterward, nobody in their right mind wants to face Kelvin Sampson's defense, but it's there. So if they do, it'll be interesting to see how they handle Henry and if someone else can step up. But that's a long way away from now. We'll talk about that if it ever happens.
Yeah, it just depends what Carolina team shows up, man. Starting this Thursday in Greenville, that's really what it comes down to. We'll see.
If you're in the region and you plan on going down to, you can go down to Greenville on Wednesday, find out when the open practices are, and it's open to the public. It's free. And the concessions are open. They're selling stuff. It's NCAA. There's a public address guy. There's the music. They have certain kinds of music for NCAA tournaments that they don't have with other stuff. So you can get a pretty cool experience even if you don't have tickets for the games. It's worth it to me. And the players sign autographs usually. In fact, if you scroll our channel and go way back, you can go back even 2017. That I used to follow Roy and follow some of the players as they're heading toward the tunnel, but they would take forever because they would just sign and sign and sign and sign. So you may have a chance to get some stuff signed as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So I encourage people to show up.
Yeah, it's cool. It's definitely something worth going to if you can. And I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure there'll be a ton of Carolina fans in Greenville for it, and a ton of Carolina fans in that area too, I'm sure as well. I was looking at the comments, just a lot of people arguing about Duke and Carolina right now. So I think we're going to stay away from that. We don't need to dive into that anymore.
We've already said we have to. We can't add anything to enhance that conversation.
Yeah, probably not. I was trying to see if there was any questions over here, but I don't really see anything too pressing over there. That's just a lot.
Let's throw it out there right now. So this is kind of cool. I've wanted to take questions before. Thought about bringing people on, having them come in. So if you got some questions, we got a little bit more time. So fire away. Just by the way, Duke. I don't want to talk about Duke. I'm not going to talk about Duke. People are going to
probably
poison tip arrows at me if we talk about Duke.
We do have a question.
Who do you think's going to win this whole thing? I think my pick is Arizona, and I haven't even gone to the whole bracket. I think Arizona is the most complete team right now. Especially Duke is going to be able to survive for a while without Patrick in the middle. They're probably not going to get Foster back, but they would need him by the time they get to teams like that. Right now, my pick is Arizona.
I could see it. I haven't really had a chance to dive into the bracket too much. I mean, I like Michigan a lot. I do like Arizona. Obviously, as you talked about Duke, I know I'm just listing 1 seeds right now. I do think Duke is arguably playing some of the best basketball. But honestly, I take that back. One of the teams that I've had circled for a little bit now, but the Vanderbilt game kind of maybe scared me away from them a little bit because Vanderbilt was the best team in that game, and big game from Jalen Washington. I think he had 17 points against them on Saturday. But Florida, I like Florida a lot. I think Florida's been one of the hottest teams in the country the last couple, month and a half. And just watching them as I've been able to, they're a team that I know defend a national title, hard to repeat. They have done it before, but Florida's a team I've had my eye on for a little bit. But like I said, that Vanderbilt game I know it's just a conference tournament. We've seen Carolina play poorly in the conference tournament and go win a national title. But if I had to pick one, I'd probably go with Florida right now. But I'm not. I think there's a handful of teams in this year's tournament that could win it, and I think that's what's going to make it so fun. It's not like you're just looking at like 1 or 2 teams. I think there's a handful of teams that can make a run and potentially win this thing. So I think
I think it's a more top-heavy field. I think there are a lot of teams that can get to Indianapolis, but I don't think there's a lot of teams that can win it all. If Jaden Bradley is healthy, I know he got dinged up. Yeah. If he's healthy, then they're in great shape.
I actually covered him.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, I covered him at a high school event. Yeah, in Winston-Salem. It was Chris Paul's he has a little basketball complex over there. And it was him and somebody else. He played at Florida State, and I can't remember his name right now. But yeah, Jaden Bradley was there, and he was.
I know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking about. He was like a 6'6" forward, very
I
light,
can't
thin
remember his
kid.
name. Yeah,
He was from the
played at
western part of the
State.
state.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah. Carolina talked to him for about 9 minutes, and that was about
Yeah,
it.
and then it was
Yeah, I
over.
know who you're
I think
talking
that was
about.
the reason I was there to cover Bradley a little bit too. I know that recruitment didn't really end up going anywhere, but he was one of the top guards, if not the top guard
Yeah,
in the country at that point. But yeah, he was super
he was
impressive there.
pretty high up there.
Super impressive. Yeah, no, he
All right,
definitely was.
what questions do we have?
Yeah, we do have a couple questions. Let me scroll back up, see if I can find the one we just had. Here we go. This is the first one we got from JB2-206. Is it better to have the ball in Seth's hands and bump Dixon to the 2? Interesting question on that one. I mean, we have seen that a little bit this year, but I mean, Derek's been playing some decent basketball recently. I mean, I don't think he's necessarily been the problem. I think I like him at the point guard. I personally don't love Seth as the primary ball handler. I know we've seen it at times this year. I just don't think that's where he's best at. So if I was answering that question, I would say no. I would prefer to keep Derek as the on-ball guy and have Seth kind of playing as the 2 where he is. But do you agree with that, AJ? Or you go somewhere else?
Well, I think the premise of the question probably comes from the fact that if you could spring Derek free, if you can have him curl around something up top, he can catch and shoot. He's got a beautiful shot. He's got a great release, wonderful, great rotation. And he's shown that he can get the ball off pretty quickly too. And for an offense that does tend to go through periods where they struggle, that's obviously a need. And in order to do that, he's not on the ball. But what I go back to what I've said all year long. I really am a big fan of teams that can run like a freelance motion, because when you do that, the ball doesn't stick in somebody's hands. And I think one of the problems with this team is the ball sticks in people's hands too much. Seth on the ball would be fine if he's not on the ball for 15 dribbles. He's fine if he's on the ball. If something's there, he can attack, and teams have to honor that the way they defend him, because he's the one guy in the team that can get to the rim from outside the 3-point circle. And by doing that, if Derek's defender cheats off, boom, he's open. But I wouldn't want Seth to solely be on the ball. I don't think you want to start your set with Seth. I think you want to start it with Derek. But I got issues with some of the sets that they run, because it's not always the traditional pass and cut away and the ball will eventually find you. I think that's one of the problems with Derek. And most of the threes that he's hit these last 2 games have been sort of in desperation time too.
That's a good point too. Yeah.
So that's, and the team's been far more aggressive. I think more than anything, they just need to be aggressive. They need to attack. They don't put defenses on their heels. There are way too many times where I've seen this club get the ball at the court, even against a press, and they stop and they reboot, and they force themselves to have to beat a team twice on that possession. And it's just not my favorite way of playing basketball. I think they need to attack. And if they attack from all points and are aggressive, you could be aggressive and attack. It doesn't mean you have to go to the rim and crash into people. You can kick it out. You can restart. Seth had a kick out to, I think, Henry for a 3 the other day, right in front of where I was sitting, where he's in the air, the basket's here, and he's looking back here at Henry, throwing the ball to him. And the defense had sucked in, and Henry's wide open. So more than anything, I think if they attack more, Derek's going to get a lot of those opportunities the person asking the question is probably thinking about. Derek he's the most heads up ball handler on the 100%. Team. He sees everything. His head's up. Seth sometimes kind of gets a little tunnel vision when he's on the handle. He also loses the handle sometimes. He's gotten stripped a few times out on the perimeter, and Derek has gotten stripped too, but Seth's gotten stripped a little bit more frequently, given the fewer number of times he's actually on the ball as opposed to Derek.
Yeah, for sure. That was kind of what I meant with my answer too. Is like I don't feel as comfortable when Seth is handling the ball primarily. I just we've talked to him about it. I mean, his ball handling has improved since he arrived in Chapel Hill. There's no doubt about it. But still, there's just it doesn't fill me with a ton of confidence. You're like, hey, you're just gonna go be the point guard now. Like that, I wouldn't want to see him having the ball in his hands for 35 minutes.
Yeah, let me throw something else out there too. This program, if you're old enough to remember this program a long time ago, man, they wrote the book on how to backdoor people. Yeah. You never see him go backdoor anymore. Seth is a guy. Seth is a guy, you can pop him, you can run him off Henry down on the block, comes out to the wing, drags his guy out there, and then cuts. And Derek is a good passer, and he could find him on a backdoor cut. But we don't see that very often. That's why I think Seth should be utilized more with his athletic ability and his quickness, and he's become a much better finisher of late than he was previously. some of those back doors might be wide open that he doesn't have to lay it up there. He can just flush it. So I would like to see more of that with him, but they're not going to reinvent some things here in the next couple of days. But to answer the person's question, that's kind of the way I look at using the two of them. I would keep Derek on the ball, keep Seth at the two, but I would move him a lot more. When you've got a dude that can bounce like him and can get to the rim like him and has a lot of gifts that are natural and that not everybody has, you're not utilizing him as well as you should if he's not moving that much.
100%. There's no doubt about it. Let me just see if there's a couple more questions. We'll do 2 more questions. There's been a few. A lot of them are kind of duplicates. A lot of questions about Hubert, obviously. I'll read this one to you from Brandon McLean. He's in our YouTube comments a lot. So shout out to Brandon for getting involved on this live stream as well. But AJ, do you think our offensive and defensive schemes are our biggest problems, or do you think it's roster construction? I personally think we have the talent with Caleb to be way better than we are. And I do agree with him. I think with Caleb, this team has been better than they've shown especially the last couple of games. There's no doubt about it. This team is a lot better with Caleb Wilson is in the starting lineup and healthy. So what do you make of that, Ed? Do you think it is a offensive and defensive scheme issue being the biggest problem for the Tar Heels, roster construction, a little bit of both? What do you think about this team overall and how this?
I just read a comment Brandon made about the back door, and he's 100% right. We do see it against the zone some. A lot of that's high-low. Mm-hmm. And, Roy used to chew up Syracuse's zone with the bigs racking up. Bryce Johnson had 8 assists one game up at Syracuse.
In the middle of the lane,
just made a living finding Isaiah Hicks that night. And they do space pretty well with the bigs and some of that. And there's some real backdoor cuts, some modified ones, but you got to do it, man. You got to drag your man out and you got to go. The question is, what is the problem without Caleb?
Do you think our offensive and defensive schemes are the biggest problems, or do you think it's roster construction? So really just trying to get to the bottom of maybe why this team hasn't been better than they have. He's saying too, they're obviously better with Caleb. Yeah. That's what he thinks. And obviously, but what do you make of that?
I think that the marriage.
I think we've talked about all three at times this year. Really, we've talked about
the marriage. The marriage to the switching is something that I have a problem with. You watch some of these other big time teams play. If they switch, they switch and recover quickly.
Carolina does not do that.
And the problem that I have with Carolina, and it goes back to, I read the quote the other day. In fact, I'll bring it up again if you want. But they switch on stuff that's not necessary. And it creates matchup advantages for the offense. And that is a problem I have. I guesstimated, and I'm not going to take the time to go back and look, I guesstimated that about 85% of Clemson's field goals the other night were scored over a defender that was not initially on that Clemson player when the possession started.
Yeah.
It was just catching people in the switches. So I probably won't read it now. I'll do it some other time. I did it in the pod I did with Noah the other day. It was a quote.
Is that the one that came out on Friday?
Yeah. Don't say the name. I think you know the name, but don't say the name. But it was it was from an NBA coach. It was from an NBA coach about switching and the philosophy about how he hates switching because of what it breeds and just creates disadvantages for yourself. Offensively, they run some pretty good sets. They run some good actions at times, and I think that if they could get Luka moving before he gets the ball, he's a much better player and he's much more decisive and he's quicker that way. When Luka gets the ball and stands still and then tries to make something happen, nothing happens. And you need to eliminate that some. But when they're stagnant and when the opposition is pushing the offense out to the point where you can't run some of that stuff. You go back to the Clemson game at home when Luka went for 20. Brad Brownell was talking about how when Luka's coming around the corner like that, he's lethal. He's elite, is what he said. Yep. But Carolina has trouble getting Luka coming around the corner, especially that Brad went ahead and adopted Duke's defensive game plan from the game in Cameron by pushing the offense out. When you do that, your sets aren't going to work. Then you got to go into freelance mode, but everything is so spread out. There's the bad pass stuff. You play into some doubles. You don't know where your teammates are because you're not in your normal flow. The recognition is more challenged. So I think you'll see VCU try to do that too. That's the game plan right now because Caleb's not there.
That's the blueprint.
You push the offense out. Carolina's going to have, that's why they got to play faster. Don't let them push the offense out. Get the ball up there. And if anything, even if you don't shoot, I've said this for like 6 weeks now, you can run stuff through and come back out. And the defense has to react to the ball. And if the ball is moving And if the people are moving, you can find stuff there. Don't let them push the offense out. I would imagine that has been a point of emphasis since the Clemson game. I would imagine that's been the primary point of emphasis, to be honest with you.
I think it has to be. I think it absolutely should be and absolutely needs to be. Yeah, and I think just to hit on one more thing you asked too about roster construction, I do think that has played a factor too. And I think that plays a factor with 99.9% of teams across the country. I have said a few times this season, especially over the last couple of months, that I do think Carolina has too many passengers, just put it very bluntly. I mean, you brought Kyan Evans in. I'm not trying to pick on anybody I'm about to list off right here. You brought Kyan Evans. He was your starting point guard, paid a lot of money for him to be a starting point guard. Now he's a guy that really doesn't play that much. And Jonathan Powell has some games where he does some stuff off the bench and some games where he really doesn't do a lot for you. Zayden High, I think his emergence late's been great, but not super consistent really at times off the bench. And I mean, the other guys, Jaden Young, I know he was brought in to not play a ton of minutes, but he's a guy that most of the time isn't bringing you a lot. And I even think some of the other guys, even looking at people in the starting lineup, I think Stevenson's played some good basketball this year, but Luka, I think Luka's a guy that was brought in, and as we heard in the offseason, AJ, this guy is a scorer. This guy is a bucket getter. And I think that's what he was brought in to do. I think consistency and adjusting to the college game has been something he's really struggled with. So you could put him on there as well. I just think overall, when you look at the roster top to bottom, especially with Caleb Wilson out of the mix, I just think there's a lot of guys on pretty much any given night you can't really pencil in for much. And that's a problem when you get in these big games and start playing these better teams in Cameron Indoor, playing Clemson in the ACC tournament when you're depleted. That's when it really shows. So if those guys can step up, which a lot of guys did when Caleb and Henry were out during those stretches where Carolina played some good basketball, especially with Caleb being out. You look at like the box scores in the game log from a few of their games without Caleb. Like you had different guys leading the way. You had Jaron Stevenson. You had Jonathan Powell having a big night. You had the big 20-point game from Luka against Clemson. Like Carolina has to get back to that if they're going to have any chance of making a run in the NCAA tournament. You have to have guys stepping up, different guys on any given night stepping you up. But also, too, AJ, got to have Henry continuing to carry you. You got to have Seth continuing to produce. You got to have Derek continuing to hit shots. You have to have Jaren continuing to give you something, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think roster construction has played a part in it. But again, like I think that's most teams around the country that aren't sitting here as a number one seed like they want to be. You know what I mean?
I can answer the question by saying what you just mentioned 4 names.
Mm-hmm.
2 of them haven't been consistent at all. Not even come close to it. And Seth hasn't been entirely consistent.
He's been up and down at times too.
Well, 4 points at State, they lose. 4 points at Miami, they lose. There's some of when he's not producing, at least giving you something, they struggle some. But as far as roster construction, at the time, I think a lot of us, and me included, I'm guilty of thinking that the roster was more dynamic than it has proven to be. Part of that, we talk to people around the program and they tell us stuff, and often they're right about things. But I think a fair way to look now, and this is the thing about the portal, like preseason rankings are so idiotic because nobody knows. The 2 guys, let's look at the main players very, very quickly. I know we got to check out here, but
we'll do one more question after this and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah. I guess it's NCAA tournament time. We can talk hoops around the clock. I think a lot of people would be cool with that. So I'm going to go through very quickly and just say like an arrow up, arrow down, based on what expectations, like where were they at the moment people shifted gear into basketball season back last fall, right? Based on what we expected when they landed Henry in the portal and what he did at Arizona and some of the things Tommy Lloyd said about him. I went back and listened to every press conference question Tommy Lloyd was asked about Henry Vessar. So I felt like I thought I had a pretty good handle on things, right? Carolina has gotten a significantly better version of Henry Vessar than anybody expected. That is a massive arrow up. Caleb Wilson, even though they didn't get him in the portal, but it's part of roster construction, David Sisk raved about his energy, raved about how he's a highly, highly, highly rated guy who actually thrives in doing the little things for you. And we've seen that play out. He said it depends on how much he can improve his ability to put the ball in the basket will determine what kind of scorer he's going to be. Well, he worked his rear end off. I told you the story where, like, I leave the Dean Dome sometimes 5-6 hours after a game because I get a ton of work done. I could pin my ears back and do a lot of stuff. And Caleb had struggled one night and told Noah and a few people that were talking to him in post-game interviews that he said, I'm coming back later tonight to work out. Well, when I left, I walk right by the practice gym. He's in there working out like 5-6 hours after the game. He's that guy. He's been better than anybody expected. Much better, in my opinion, especially with the scoring numbers. So that's two. Okay. Those are two guys that have been dramatically better. Now, let's look at the rest of them very, very quickly. Jonathan Powell, we didn't really know how he would fit in. We kind of thought he was a piece that would sort of slide in and find his spot over time. I thought that was happening a while ago, but then it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's just sort of, he's had his moments when he's fit into stuff, and he's not had moments when he hasn't fit in. I would say Jonathan Powell has given them about what was perhaps expected or a little bit less. And a lot of the less is not so much because he hasn't played well. I don't think he's played as much as people thought that he would.
Yeah, it's fair. That's fair.
Kyan Evans is easy. I told people I thought Kyan was a really good player because he looked really good at Colorado State last year. You go back and look at the Memphis game, the NCAA tournament. I thought he could handle it, but he's light, he's thin, and he struggled. And I talked to several people who understand what it's like to play for all that stuff. And it's different. If you transfer to Colorado, it's different than if you go to North Carolina because you're playing for something much larger, which Henry and Caleb totally get and they embrace. And that's partly why I think they've excelled. I think Kyan's had trouble with it. And then he got into a bad stretch there that he never really came out of. And so obviously he has not performed to the level of expectation. I think Jaden Young's been about what people thought. They thought he might get some time here and there. Not about that. And he has a chance to play for the team he grew up, crying when they would lose back in the day. So I think that's cool. He's sort of a wash. Derek Dixon, I think, has shown flashes, but he goes through stretches where he really, really struggles. He struggles defensively. He can't get by people with the ball sometimes. But I think they saw him as a backup. They saw him as a 10-minute-a-game backup, and he was thrust into a starter's role. So with that being the case, we've seen more of his works. But I do think if he were to stay there and play, he could have a really good 4-year career at North Carolina and be a very, very, very good college player as he continues to grow and develop. He's probably, I would say, maybe a little bit up just simply because he's handled taking over that role pretty well. He's a smart, smart dude. He's a mature guy, and he stepped up in some games he hasn't played well in by delivering late. Kentucky, 100%. He did it was against was it Clemson's Duke? Look what he did against Duke. So there's a lot of good stuff there to build on. So I would say that there's a little bit of an uptick there.
And I think just to chime in real quick, just sorry to cut you off, but you could make it. You could easily sit here. You could easily sit here and say, like, where would this team be without Derek Dixon in some ways too? With how he's
Seth would
kind
be
of
on the
stepped
ball.
up. You know what I mean?
Yes, Seth would be on the ball probably. And I think in that 30 and 20 week he had wouldn't have occurred if he was on the ball.
No, it wouldn't have. No chance.
He wouldn't have been in the corner for Trimble. He wouldn't have been in the corner.
Who passed him the ball? I mean, it was a great pass by Derek Dixon on that play. Kentucky
Zayden Hyde
don't win that game without him.
Zayden Hyde's been a plus. We were hearing back in the fall that Zayden was sometimes the best player at practice. Kind of wonder, man, we hadn't seen that. And all of a sudden, boom, he gets the opportunity. It's amazing how much better a guy can play when he's not looking over his shoulder, when he can just let himself go. And I think that's part of Jonathan Powell's issue. He's not really had many opportunities to let himself go in the games. Luke, I think, is sort of the one that people are going to talk about a lot because, man, they were worried like hell he wasn't going to get cleared. And he's a guy that people thought in time would be big time. I think Luka would excel in a lot of systems. I don't know that this system has been super conducive to some of his limitations, hasn't worked with his limitations because he's forced to put the ball on the floor too much, or he just does it too much. And it's a bugaboo he hasn't fixed, and he dribbles himself into trouble all the time. He didn't dribble a ton against Clemson, and he gets a bunch of points because he's coming around those corners, he's getting some screens, and he's doing the catch and shoot thing, which he's very, very good at. So I would think that he has been well below what people expected. But I also think now that we've seen his game, that some of the expectations were unfair by some people who maybe the European analysts that are out there or people around the program probably should have tempered the excitement a little bit more based on what they saw. Because it hasn't meshed with what we were told.
No, that was what I was gonna say. It definitely has it. And I think too, just trying to figure out how, the Montenegrin league kind of how that really compares to not much less Division One college basketball, but the University of North Carolina with the expectations, the pressure that comes along with playing here.
I think he can handle that.
I think he can too. I don't think that's really been a problem.
I think he can handle that.
Yeah.
And he has gotten comfortable with being there. He really likes it there now. He jokes with his teammates. I think that stuff is okay. Being there, the laundry and all that. I think he's so uber focused and dialed in on the game and on basketball itself that's what fuels him. There's just some limitations in his game that you might want to run stuff to hide some of those limitations. And too often he's in positions where they're exposed and he tries to do more than he really can. A lot of that is his bad habits. It's his game that he needs to work on.
For sure.
He's not getting to the rim coming from the wing in a half court set unless there's a complete defensive breakdown. But a lot of possessions are foiled because some of those decisions that are made. And we haven't seen a tremendous amount of improvement. As soon as you think, man, Luka's starting to get it, then there's like 2 games where like, man, I guess Luka hasn't gotten it yet. Yeah. I think he's a really good player. I think he's a really nice player. And I think there are a lot of systems he would flourish in. Mm-hmm. It's not flourishing now. It's not consistent. If he was consistently at 12, I think they would be thrilled.
Oh, I think so too. Oh my God. I think you take that. Yeah. Oh my God. I think you'd take that. I think Hubert would take that for sure. But again, and this will feed into the last question because there has been a lot of questions about Hubert. So we're gonna wrap it up with this. I'm just gonna try to tie a bunch of questions into one. But the main question that I did see is, let's say Carolina doesn't get out of the first weekend, excuse me. Does that, is the pressure from, I think a lot of the questions I've seen is from administrative standpoint, is the pressure, because I think the fan base pressure is already there from a lot of different angles. Yeah. And if Carolina goes and loses to VCU or let's say Illinois in the second round of the tournament, we know what the conversation and the discourse is going to be amongst fans. Let's say there is a first weekend exit. Is the pressure going to be on from people in power, for lack of a better word, at Carolina? Does that change anything? Is that even a question that we can even really answer right now? I think a lot of people would just like to get your thoughts on it. And obviously based on some conversations you've had too, I would think over the last couple of months.
Yeah. Over the last week.
With some people that know things.
Well, yeah. Here's how you have to look at it. People that, if a decision's made one way or the other. Either you make a decision not to do anything or you make a decision to do something. So a decision is made, period, right? Mm-hmm. No matter what. I think if you pull back the passion and try to understand, decision makers cannot operate with emotion. Fans operate with emotion. Sports writers should not operate with emotion. People who do talk shows should not operate with emotion unless you are a self-proclaimed like Carolina fan show or something like that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Then that's fine. And those kinds of podcasts serve a wonderful purpose. Mm-hmm. But you also need the other kind that don't operate with the emotion. And so the people who don't operate with emotion, there's one way they're going to look at it. Beat Kansas, beat Kentucky, beat Duke, won at Virginia, beat Louisville, won 24 games, 18-0 at home, and they did this with only having their top 3 players together for 15 games, and it was scattered around the season. And then it gets derailed here at the end with their best player now being out. Would the record be different if they never had those injuries? I think they could have beaten Michigan State with Seth. Jeremy Fears would have maybe had a defender there that limited some of the drives. That could have been a difference. I don't know. Michigan State's really good. They're better than North Carolina. So probably the right team won that game regardless, right? Miami, they both got hurt. Henry and Caleb got hurt in that game.
That was just a horrible game.
They go to Duke and lose. They go to
Duke
and lose. Maybe they were healthy and lost and had the California trip. I mean, that was a snapshot of partly who they are. They're the team that stayed alive and found a way to beat Duke, and they're also the team that went to California and absolutely sucked when they were out there. And having seen all 3 games up close, I've covered every game this year. The disposition against Duke was completely different than the disposition in Palo Alto and Berkeley. So a lot of it has to do with disposition. It's not just talent. It's the communication, it's the spirit, it's the verb, it's the jive, it's all that kind of stuff that we love to throw out there. But I do it a lot because it actually is important. They're not in the stat sheet, but they're very, very important. So the people who are going to look at things unemotionally are going to have to look at things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And was there progress made in some areas? I think Hubert's made some progress in some areas like trusting players. We've talked about that a lot. I was told by two people very close to the situation back in the fall, boy, if he could just learn to trust his players more, it's going to be different. And I do think he's trusted them more. But there are also some things that people can pick at. The game plan and the lack of adjustments the last two games is alarming.
For sure.
To be perfectly honest with you, it was not his best moments as a coach. Mm-hmm. Not even close. And I'm being very diplomatic here. I can say this, and I'm leading to this point. I've been a part of multiple conversations over the last several years with people that have a role in the process that the person's asking about. And the consistent reply at some point is, we see what you guys see. So they're not blind to it at all. They understand what the standard is. And they also understand that Hubert's done a lot of things that if you're 30,000 feet in the air and look down, you say, that's pretty good. If you're in Idaho, you say, man, that guy's done pretty good jobs replacing a legend. Mm-hmm. But the closer you get to Chapel Hill, the closer you get to 15501, the concerns start to pop up a little bit more. They become clear and more obvious. So, long way of responding to the question. I don't think there's anything clear cut at all. I do think that part of the process might be what Hubert thinks. I've been told several times, and you know this, I've told you this for a while before I've said anything publicly, but like Hubert doesn't want to be hated. He loves this program, man. He just loves this program as much as anyone possibly can. He adores it. He's been a part of it since he was a little kid. When his uncle was playing for him, and he's riding back from Montreal from the Olympics with Lagarde and Ford and Davis, Kupchak. Imagine that when you're a kid. I mean, they opened up the veins and they just injected every ounce of it they could into him, and it's still there. So he's got all that stuff, and he understands the importance of things. And he talks about it's an act of service and everything else. These are legitimately genuine words that come out of his mouth that he truly believes. So he doesn't want to be hated. He doesn't want to not be a part of the Lord, doesn't want to be exiled or anything like that. 100%. And I think that is something that when people think about his future, don't just think about Bubba and Steve Newmark and Lee Roberts, and don't think just about what you and all your buddies think. There's also the Hubert Leslie Davis discussion, the Hubert Roy Williams aspect of this. And what does Hubert think? What does he think about how things are going? We don't know. He looks tired to me. I think he's aged a lot in this job.
Yeah, I mean, I think
there are times he's been a little bit more prickly in press conferences this year than previously. This team they thought was set up to be damn good. And you know what? If they didn't have the injuries, they very well could have been pretty damn good. They'd be like 3C good. They could have been that. Maybe. I don't know. Or maybe Hubert couldn't get him there. Or maybe they weren't as good as we thought. So maybe 4C would have been their ceiling if everything went the right way. None of us know that. But I think it's more than just, does the administration care enough or anything like that. I don't like when people say stuff like that. I turn and look away because I don't think that is valuable to the discussion. I think the value to the discussion is understanding that this is a deep situation in that the head coach loves the program and appreciates every stitch in all that stuff that's hanging. And he would never want to put himself in position to embarrass the program or do anything like that. I don't think you're going to see things handled like Matt Doherty or anything like that. If there is anything to handle, I have no idea. I just think I think that's a component that people need to think about a little bit more.
For sure. For sure. And we've said it before, but in a perfect world, Hubert's the perfect guy for the job. But at the end of the day, you got to win games. And a lot of people, like you said, just look at, 8 seed year one, made it to the national title game, didn't win it, but they were an 8 seed. A lot of people look at the next year and say, number one team in the country and you don't make the tournament. And then you're a 1 seed after that. And probably, should have made it further in the tournament that year. 11 seed last year, get bounced out in the first round after having to play a play-in game. And then this year, you're a 6 seed despite having a guy like Caleb Wilson, which, again, extremely unlucky situation, not being in the mix. So a lot of people just look at that and they say, that's not good enough in North Carolina. And I completely understand where people are coming from. I do. But it's not as simple as that. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to throw this in there before you signed it off. But the conversations that are had, there are many conversations that are had, but a lot of people also, it's not just what the numbers are, but how do you get to those numbers? Mm-hmm. And that's a concern that some people have. That's why such and such says, like, we see what you see. So they're not just looking at numbers. They're looking at how you get to those numbers. Mm-hmm. And for example, in the same week when Hubert made no adjustments against Duke and they go on a 36 run and make literally no adjustments in that same week period, he called the perfect defensive set to sniff out Clemson's last possession and they win the game. Mm-hmm. And he made a lot of other wonderful adjustments in that game. So they see that. So it's not, hey, we see what you see. It's not just the negative stuff that gets people going.
Yeah.
It's everything. And there's a lot of very positive stuff there. And you just said it yourself, man. I mean, in a perfect world, someone like Hubert Davis running this program and having Roy Williams kind of success, that is perfection. That's what you want. If you can keep it in the family and keep that thing going. I'll tell you guys this, when I go on the road, I talked with someone in the program about this just a few weeks ago, because a lot of teams, their home teams, wherever you go, they generally do their head coach first. But a lot of times when Carolina's on the road, they want Hubert first because their local media wants to be a part of Hubert's press conference. They were like that big time with Roy, but they're like that with Hubert. They don't view Hubert the same way some angry fans do. They see him as part of this historical fabric that essentially Carolina basketball was something before Dean Smith arrived. Obviously, there was a lot of success and everything, but everything that you see now, when Roy Williams talks about the arena and the future of the arena, man, he's speaking for Dean. He's propping up Dean. He's saying, this is what Dean thinks. Hubert is a connection to that. He's a descendant of that. He's 5th generation to James Naismith. He also had Pat Riley in his life. So there are a lot of reasons why, man, if it could work with him, it is perfect to have someone like him. Even if he doesn't give the greatest press conferences, who cares? That's not the point.
Win games, nobody cares.
Steve Forbes is a great press conference quote.
All-time press conference, man.
Yeah, but he didn't get to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. Nobody cares what the press conference sounds like if you win games, man. Nobody cares about anything if you're winning games, really. That's what it comes down to.
That's the most I'm comfortable saying on it right now, just because you got to let things play out.
Yeah, again, the season's not over yet. The season's not over yet. It's not the time.
They could have, look, I'm telling you, if they get run out by VCU and Duke makes a run, that's part of it. You're not just judged. David Sisk made a great, we talked last night, pretty late actually, and he was talking about how Auburn and Alabama were kind of nip and tuck there for a while. Back Cam Newton was at Auburn, and that was the biggest game every year. And he said, when one program's still thriving and one drops off a little bit, it loses some steam.
100%.
And the program that drops off some becomes even more uber focused on comparing itself to the one that's doing well. And I think that's a lot of Shire hasn't done anything, comes from a Carolina fan perspective, like, man, I mean, deep down, that comes from, damn, they are doing something, but I gotta quell that. I gotta temper that some. I gotta throw some water on that steam there. And I think that's kind of what's going on right now. So Hubert's going to be judged by the standard, by the laundry, by his personal stated expectations, and also by what's going on down the road.
For sure. That will always play a factor in North Carolina, just like it'll play a factor at Duke if they're in a similar situation at some point and Carolina's winning ACC tournament championships and being number 1 seeds. I mean, that's what you get when the rivalry that's so close. So we're going to wrap this thing up, man. I think it's an appropriate time to do it. By the way, I will throw this in there. It came out about 30 minutes ago, but 6:50 p.m. tip-off on Thursday. Game will be on TNT. So 6:50 p.m., which works out well for me because I do have a full-time job. So that would be, I don't have to worry about figuring out how I'm going to skate home for a podcast at 2:00 in the afternoon. So 6:50, nice little tip off time. No complaints from me on that one, AJ. You will not hear me complaining about 6:50.
Finding a spot for post game pods is that's going to be a challenge, but hopefully the press conference room will have that.
Outside. We're getting close to that. Just put you in the parking lot.
Someone one time said, just go in your car. Like, okay, where's the Wi-Fi?
You wouldn't see me. Yeah, it'd be a darkest podcast we've ever done. You try to do one from the car at 9 o'clock at night. Yeah, 9 o'clock at night.
We always do.
Yeah, good tip off time. We'll see. Yeah, we'll be able to make it. We'll make it happen one way or another.
Wait a second. What
you got?
You're pleased with the tip off time?
God, AJ. Oh my God, yeah. AJ, dude, I'm a simple man. AJ.
You took a beating for your curmudgeon stuff last week about.
And I'm gonna say this, AJ. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up.
you took a beating, dude.
we got to stop acting like a society that we like 9:30 p.m. tip-off times. By the way, game didn't start till about 9:45.
I apologize, everybody. I didn't mean to light this fuse.
I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. AJ. We got to stop as a society acting like we like tip-off times at about 10 o'clock. Like, I just refuse to believe if anybody looks at like a day and they could pick out the top 10 times a game could start, that 9:30 p.m., 9:40 actually, it was about 9:45. You know, I was paying attention to that for the Clemson game. That would be their selected tip-off time. That's all I'm saying. So as long as the game if it's before 9:30, you won't see me complain. Well, before 9, I'm 9. I don't like 9 either. Before 9, you won't see me complaining. But after 9, we gotta get
I have to defend you in this. I have to give more disclosure. It's not just the tip-off time; it's the three things time.
Oh yeah, it's a late one. I didn't.
You and I finished. You and I finished three things Thursday night at 2 a.m. Friday morning.
Brutal.
And I hadn't even started writing yet.
Brutal. It's brutal. It's brutal. And like I said, I got a full-time job that I do too. So like I've got to be up the next day at like 8 a.m., 7:30 a.m. to get rolling. So that plays a factor with it too. I love the grind. I love talking to you on a podcast at 2:30 a.m. in the morning. It's just nothing I'd rather be doing at 2:30 a.m. in the morning.
Absolutely.
But we just got to stop with these.
We got to stop quality of life, my man.
I'm getting just obliterated in the comments. Like people, okay, I guess people like watching games at 10 o'clock. My apologies, guys. Who would ever thought?
Are they hitting you right? Are they hitting you right now?
No, I think it's pretty positive right now. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Hey, Sean Crowley, rock on, man. 5Q maintenance closet because Elaine likes to fish. The best part of that was Kramer took the chains. Like, what the hell did he do with the chains?
I got to go watch Seinfeld, man.
You got to watch it. You got to go watch it you got to go watch it and build up.
I just need to watch it because you bring it up about every other podcast, and
I'm any person who is a Seinfeld person realizes that you cannot go through a full 24-hour day without something Seinfeld like popping up in your life.
I need to go watch it. I really do. I really need to go watch it just so I can understand half the references.
Sean Crowley, I got to point to the passer to Sean Crowley because the 5Q is the best. You got to watch that episode, man.
I'll have to tune in, man. I need it because again, it's like every time you bring up Seinfeld, I'm like, well, I have not seen that, so I have no idea what you're talking about. But the people do, so that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if I know what you're talking about or not.
Not everybody, but
yeah, a good amount of people, I'm sure. A good amount.
I did make a Brady Bunch reference a few weeks ago, and someone said that they watch it, and actually Shelby Swanson, the NNO, she's 22, and she's like, "Oh, it came up." I think Rod Baxley brought it up in the press room or something like that. So I was like, "Yeah, I binged on Brady Bunch on Netflix or Huddle or not Huddle, or Hulu, whatever the thing's called." Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not well versed on that stuff, so I was very proud of her that she had binged on that because it's all about Marsha.
100%. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's a good show. I've seen some of those episodes it's been a while, but I have seen some of that as well. It's been a long time.
Fogger episode, Chris Clark. You're right on that one.
Yeah, I saw that too. So again, it was completely over my head, but it makes sense to AJ. So that's all that matters. All right, man. I think we can get out of here. I don't see really any more questions.
I'm looking for Seinfeld comments in the
about an hour and a half. I'll let you siphon through see if you see any while I close this thing out.
Just to close it out very quick. Noah and I will be there Wednesday is the open stuff, the media. And again, if you're nearby, go. It doesn't cost anything. You get a bit of an NCAA experience and you may get a chance to get some autographs from players. Just see them up close. It's pretty cool. They'll run some drills, do a lot of stuff that you might see in a pregame for a game. But Roy's teams always did a lot of dunking at the end. Hubert's haven't done as much of that. I don't think he wants him to get hurt. You're not going to
Yeah,
see it now. I mean, after Caleb, they're not going to do that.
good point.
But it's still a lot of fun. The cheerleaders are there. The band's there. There's a nice little buzz in the building. It's not full, so you can kind of meander about and sit where you want. So I encourage people to go. If you do go and you want to come down, just say hey, because Noah and I will be down there on the baseline.
Yeah, come say what's up to Noah and AJ. Absolutely, guys. And we'll obviously have a ton of coverage this week. Obviously, we do more podcasts. I know AJ and David are going to do a podcast backed by popular demand.
Serenity Now. I see a couple Serenity Nows flying through here.
Yeah, we got awesome. Some of the references coming in, man. We got some of the references. Andy Griffith's show, great show. Love that show. Greatest theme, one of the greatest theme songs in the history of television. I absolutely love it. Andy Griffith, fellow Carolina guy too.
Yeah, a few comments coming in. I'm glad that Aunt B wouldn't feed me. I'd be like 10 times better. I bet she could cook up. I bet Aunt B could cook up a damn storm.
Oh my God, I bet she could. I want to end it with this comment because this is the best comment of the night, in my opinion, from Mikey PS9VQ. 7 should be the last game time. People got lives too. Thank you, Mikey. Someone gets it.
By the way,
someone gets it.
Oh my gosh, Jamie Juice Newton. Bruce Young would love Jamie Juice Newton because of the name. Yeah, they did sweep him a couple years ago, but it's also the broader perception and all that kind of stuff too that's part of this. So
my favorite part about our YouTube comments is right now is we got Seinfeld references, we got Andy Griffith's show coming up. We got Sean in there saying that. We've got Seinfeld references, Brady Bunch references, and we still got people
another story.
Duke, and that's fantastic.
There was a girl back in high school and then post high school. She ended up going to Clemson. I grew up in Northern Virginia, Alexandria. Her name was Stephanie Higgins, and she was always getting bombed, man. So our nickname for her was Otis.
That's just fantastic right there. That's fantastic.
Point to Rick Lothrop as the passer on that one.
Yeah, the comments are fantastic. We got
that one.
We have. You know what's funny? We have managed to derail the live show, and that's a credit to what we do typically on the day.
Hey, derailing is an art form that we have damn near mastered.
And like I said, my favorite part is we've derailed, but there's still people going back and forth about Duke, which is just fantastic.
They don't even know. They probably have us on mute. They're just typing away. They're just firing away the next message at some guy they disagree with.
Yeah, just in war mode right now. You got to respect it, man. You got to respect it for sure. All right. Can we officially
Chris Clark, damn, Otis was the only one married. You're right about that.
I don't even.
The best thing was just reach out, grab the keys, let himself out. That's a great show.
Fantastic stuff, guys. We appreciate everybody that's hopped in here today. It's been a fun hour and 37-minute show. First live stream. Way too late. 9:47 p.m. Eastern.
Oh my God.
Way too late. Yeah, we have managed to really.
I still got a bunch of stuff. I bet Noah has texted me 1,100 times.
Oh God, probably like, dude, where are you and where have you been the last hour?
And we have Riken's the baseball team's been out in Berkeley.
Yeah, man. I think last time I saw they were whooping Cal. I think they completed the sweep. You guys correct me in the comments if they have. But yeah, good weekend out west for the Tar Heels and one of the most bizarre baseball stadiums I've seen in a while. If you haven't, just go Google Cal Stadium. It's a weird one.
By the way, Bart Watts. Hey, Bart, cheers to you too, man. Keep it going on Twitter. I always look forward to your comments on Twitter. Good.
100%.
You're a thoughtful, knowledgeable, passionate Carolina fan, and I love stuff like that. I love the passion of the fan base, and then the anger. I could deal with it because it comes from passion. It comes from really care, and we wouldn't have a job if they didn't. And that's one of the reasons why we do as many pods as we do to reach more people. Come on over to TarHeal247.com. It's not that much. You can be an Tar Heel Insider too. You get all your David Sisk fix too, because most of the stuff he does is not a podcast. So
yeah, man, you get a lot more Noah over there too, man. People love David and Noah, and rightly so. They're absolutely fantastic and
100%.
A ton of great work over here at TarHeal247.com. So yeah, come on, get signed up. Links in the description below, same as always. And yeah, I'll wrap it up with this same old spiel. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. I guess you can still get involved in the comments because this will be a video after the fact of this live stream is done. So you can rewatch this and get involved in the comments too. And we appreciate every single one of you guys that's got involved in the live chat tonight. We're doing some more of these again. We'll probably restructure some stuff in the off season. I'd love to get to a point where I've talked to AJ about this, doing 3 things live, just able to get it out quicker. And a lot of it just depends on arena Wi-Fi and what we can set up and some of the concerns that come along with that. But yeah, we'll definitely be doing some more live stuff in the future. And yeah, looking forward to hopping on a few more of these with you guys in the future. But yeah, we'll see y'all next time, guys, and appreciate everybody who watched. Thanks.
Appreciate y'all.